Most people are in denial for a long, well, I could quit anytime I wanted to, or, well, I can handle that. Or, well, no, I'm not angry all the time. Hopefully the person will go through these cycles and then realize, I do have a significant problem. And then my next level was getting more close to powerlessness, like I just can't, I've got a serious problem. And that's when I checked myself in for 30 days in rehab. But this was still all knowledge-based, because in my personal experience, it has to become an emotive change, not just all that knowledge accumulation gets a little closer, and then finally, when it gets down close to the identity level, then I found out that within 6 months I was going to be hospitalized because of liver damage. And that's when I'm thinking, what on earth am I going to do? And was just literally, looking for any kind of an opportunity to change. And when I went into that circumstance, it's described in the book, I don't know if you've read it yet or not, I told him, I said, if can't be changed, if this can't be changed, don't bring me back out of hypnosis. I was fully aware of what was going on during hypnosis. It was just a focused state. And so I was, it put me back into the spiritual level where a change could occur, because I literally had to psychologically die. And it's very scary to do that, because you feel like you're losing all control, but what you're really doing is regaining control of new options. And so so this just kind of outlines the process that I went through. I think it can be a little different, of course, for each person. And the process I use, neurolinguistic programming, NLP, is just simply using language skills of the person in therapy to help that person go back and assess where some of the real traumas are, how those traumas weren't necessarily imposed on them for the reasons they thought, so they can start to diffuse some of that anger. But the key to it is gaining new options, because the addictive individual has really one option, and that's to continue doing what they're doing in order to feel better. Even though it continually just spirals them down, they don't see those other options. And that's where a person has to get to a tipping point, has to get to the level of a spiritual awakening. And I say that, am I saying that in a religious sense or a spiritual sense? Well, I guess really a combination of both. For some, it may be a very religious. They may be affiliated with a particular religion. Others, it may just be a deeply spiritual. But I think it's hitting the same level with each individual. And bear in mind that this just shows the recovery process with alcohol. It doesn't deal with the other three issues that I had to deal with. Right. And that is addiction to exercise, which led to a heart problem. I ended up with a heart condition, and it scared the daylights out of me. I was 14, and that was the tipping point. That's when I backed off from and didn't do as much of it, and so I was young enough I was able to heal. And then the second one was a depressive religious obsession, not to be confused with an authentic spiritual journey. But I wanted to find, and I did, my self-esteem was so low, I wanted to find an entity, cult or whatever you want to call it, that would just literally take control and tell me what to do, that I could feel a sense of security, so that I would have worth because I'm a part of that. In other words, rather than my own inner worth. And fortunately, a few years after that, they did me a favor and disfellowshipped me, because I started writing poetry. So they did me a favor, because then but it wasn't long until I moved into the alcohol phase. Because that also helped to salve my feeling of hurt, because I didn't deal well with other people, communicate well with other people, which was kind of a dichotomy because I was in the communications industry, probably for that reason. And then the third one was food. And that's interesting, because with alcohol addiction, you do become abstinent, but you can't do that with food. You have to eat to live. So it was really a holistic process. But the tipping point was when my doctor said, "You're diabetic, and we've got to put you on this long list of medications." And I'm, thinking of people I know who are on a lot of medications. Sometimes it doesn't work well with them. Sometimes it does. And I said, "Well, what are the alternatives?" And he said, "Well, you could lose 80 lose 80 pounds, totally change your lifestyle, kind of smiling at me like, I've never seen anybody do that. And I thought, well, let's do it. And it was just a step at a time. I've lost 80 pounds. So, of course, you saw as one of the people in the group of the board of directors aptly pointed out which page it was. I don't know whether to thank you for that or not, but still, it's there for a reason. And so that's, and of course, the food thing is a daily thing, just to do a self-check with myself and realize I visualize in my mind what I want to look like. And that gets back to some of the NLP things. I visualize in my mind myself at 200 pounds. And I know that it's like the unfolding of a flower. It doesn't happen immediately. It happens slowly over a period of time. And I had to change totally what I eat. I like the Atkins diet. I won't mention that. But just having a real balance, and then the exercise part, which is critical. But in other words, the food thing is holistic. It's not just, well, I got to eat less to lose weight. It's a whole combination of factors that have to come together, in my experience. And in each one of these, all I'm doing is relating my experience.